Okay, so in part 3 of this exercise, what we had to do was to basically make the Datagrid walkthrough project here aware of the fact that we've just created a user control project here. When you create projects in the same solution, they can't necessarily see each other just yet. You have to inform them that they have effectively a sibling or a new neighbor effectively. So our Datagrid walkthrough here, while it lives in the same solution as the user control, it doesn't mean that it can see the user control project just yet. So in order to make it aware of the fact that the user control project exists, we must add a reference going from the Datagrid walkthrough to the user control. So in order to do that, you select the references folder, you right click on it, you go add reference, and that brings up this kind of a reference manager screen. So on the left hand side, it may be already selected with assemblies, or it may have already selected the solution. What you wanted to do is select solution. So if it isn't already selected, then you should select that. And inside that, you should see projects being selected in blue. Over on the right hand side, you'll want to select the project that you want to reference. So in this case, we want the user control project to be referenced. And so you just need to make sure there's a tick box there. If there isn't, then you just need to tick on it and it'll appear. And then once you do that, select OK, and now the Datagrid walkthrough project, the Windows Forms project, is now aware of the fact that the user control class library project exists. And that means that the Datagrid walkthrough project can now see and use the code inside here. In other words, we can take advantage of our employee control. So then what we had to do was create our add employee Windows form, our edit employees Windows form, and then our view employee Windows form. And once we did that, then we needed to add our user control to it. So for our add employee, we had a blank canvas, and then we went over to our toolbox, and what you'll notice in our toolbox is that our employee control will exist in there. So that's effectively meaning that it's exactly the same as a regular button or a label or a text box or a Datagrid view. It's just another control in our toolbox, and what we can do is select it and drag it over onto our canvas, and then it'll place it there on the Windows form for us. So when that's added into the Windows form, we can leave it like that. Then for the edit employee, we needed to again add our employee control to the Windows form, and then once we had done that, we should have changed the fact that it's the edit only property. So you'll recall when we created this user control, it was the two properties that we created, the edit only and the read only. So here we're going to use the property edit only, and what we're going to do is set that to true. So right click on the control, select properties, and then over here on the properties section, you'll notice that the edit only is set to true here. So edit only set to true, and what that means is that the ID cannot be edited now, and we had a look at that code in part 2. Finally, what you needed to do was to create the view employee. So double click on that, we added our user control to it, and then what we had to do was go to the properties section again, and then down in the read only section in the properties, that's our property that we created, that's set to true in that case as well. So that means that it's only read only text that can be put into it, so the user can't edit it. One thing to note is that when you have your user control, you can't change stuff like the ID or the first name or the surname. You can't change the text there. If you need to change anything in the user control, you have to go back to the user control project and change it there. So once the user control itself has been added to a Windows form, it's effectively not editable in the sense that you can't rename text boxes or you can't change the text in a label. If you need to do that, you have to go back to the user control project, make the changes there, and then they'll propagate out to the other Windows forms. So that's all we had to do for part 3. Next we'll move on to part 4, and that's it.